Just fucking do it. Subscribe now. British University archery or something like that. And you look at him, his wrists were about that big. Big my two fingers. And a stiff wind would blow him, knock him down, okay? And at first I discounted it, but I'd worked with the Lakers and I worked with a bunch of people. So those are guys that have athletic ability, right? They're already premier athletes. And I said, okay. So I went through the program, and then 13 months later, after gaining 30 pounds, mostly muscle, he won the national archery universities. He was practicing with 50 to 150 arrows a day, and I got him up to 2,000 arrows a day. He couldn't pull back. He was using a 80 or 90 pound bow, meaning the stretch, pounds, and he finished up with a 160 pound bow. He couldn't string a 100 pound bow. But he wanted it more than anything. You don't want wealth more than anything. After he fired 1,000 arrows, he'd go to the local gym and lift weights. And it was like the girls lifted significantly more weight than he did when he started. But he was bound and determined. A similar story to some of your stories. Dad beat him. It was nothing. You're never going to amount to shit. You are shit. We are shit. We live in a fucking, not a mobile home, but a caravan. The same deal. And that never changes. What changes is, your desire within. Now, he's now a coach. But he was willing to. Now, we have guys in active duty rolling up in their downtime. Dodge bullets in the morning or when they're out on a deployment, making calls in the afternoon or evening. And then we got you. He's a NATO officer. And then we got you. Somebody asked me, we have a full-time student in the room, at least one. And normally, it comes after lunch, but I'm going to pick up some stuff in the morning that I missed over for whatever reason during the week, that if you're in your last year of medical school, don't quit medical school. If you're in your last year of a PhD program, like you are, if you're in your last year of a master's program, if you in your last year of college, it doesn't matter whether you have a degree or not, but if you're in your first or second year, forget about it, drop out. If you're in some training for something, if you're not going to get the diploma or degree tomorrow, or I'm being sarcastic, in the next few months, drop out, because it's a waste of time. It's a waste of time. And we've had full-time students, full-time combat, military, you name it, we've had it, and they've completed their goals, did their first deal. I told you about the Navy SEAL that I'm working with now, is a Navy SEAL Team 5. Andres worked 60 hours a week at a full-time job and 60 hours a week with QLA. Andres is a good example for some other reasons. A lot of you want to know when you can pull out money. He didn't pull out money for 2.25 years. That's not what you want to hear, but that's the truth. Because the cash flow, and he fought Corona at that time, the cash flow was insufficient to pay him and the CFO. So he and the CFO had full-time jobs until about the 25th or 26th month. And you can. We've had every scenario known to man. We've had Josh, who was homeschooled, 17 years old, was extremely naive to the world around him, other than he could quote the Bible and stuff like that. But quoting the Bible isn't going to get you far here. The carrying one might, if you live in Chicago and it can stop a bullet. But so no matter what scenario is in this room, you can work the QLA program at the same time. We've had full-time military on active duty. Actually, it was harder when we had full-time military working the program that worked in the Pentagon. That was harder because you could get pulled into a meeting or get pulled into something right in the middle of, have you ever considered selling your business? There's virtually no scenario that you can't work the program. When I say the program, I'm talking about QLA. If you want it bad enough, we've had people work two jobs and do QLA. If you have a working partner, meaning brings in income, it's a little easier because the good news is they can bring in income. The bad news is they invariably get involved in the model because they say, or they think, they might not say, well, shit, I'm bringing in all the money and he's doing QLA, or he doesn't, the partner normally doesn't really understand what that is unless they send the partner to a seminar, as we have one here, the wife of one of our devotees, mentees from earlier this year. So some of you I know are thinking, some of you have already blocked it out. You realize you're not going to be able to, it's not that you're not going to be able to make the time. It's you don't want to make the time bad enough. Bad enough. But those are all between your ears. Those are all figments of your imagination, etc. So we have virtually no scenario. I've talked to you about the Asperger kids, Down syndrome kids, iron lung kids. There's no reason you can't do this if you want it bad enough. Many of you have already started. Most of you that have started off on the wrong foot. You came here because there was some aspect of the steps that you weren't as sure of, and normally that evolves around the money. When that's really the easiest part. But anyway, the money. Those of you that have started, it's not that hard to get a chairman. It's not that hard to build your dream team, and then accountants and lawyers, etc. But even the minor part that you didn't understand what brought you here, a couple of you are here because there's no billionaires that I'm aware of that didn't come here. There may be, but I never met him, and I'm sure if asked some asshole had become a billionaire without attending, he'd be on fucking YouTube like crazy, screaming and yelling, which is true. And remember, that only represents about 20-25% of the Hall of Fame because the other guys and gals and a couple of its don't want me to use their name or their likeness. And there's one of my mentees who, when he graduated from the Air Force Academy, he had the pleasure or displeasure of, I think the commencement speaker was Bush II. And he's rolling up healthcare in Southern California. And our greatest focus or our greatest amount of mentees that I'm aware of is in Texas healthcare. There's 8 zillion of them. Yet they've never bumped into each other. The only time that we've had any controversy, as they say in this part of the world, is when they fought over a chairman. Not fight, but a CFO. They both contacted, but not on a deal. Now either they're not really working the program legitimately, or there is so much out there that, which I believe, there's so many prospects out there, whether they're prospects or suspects, to fill up no matter how many people I produce out of here a year, which is soon to be less, although it's wound down the last couple of years. So that's not a fear. I mean, I know some of you have done research. Maybe all of you have Google fucked effect. How many home assisted living do they have? How many home health do they have? How many death roll-ups are there in my area? You heard Simon Voss say that there were 5,000 in his neighborhood and 11 or 15 more thousand in his portion of Germany, which is probably the second most frequented hotspot for QLA devotees trying to do healthcare. After Texas, it's Germany. And after that, it's the Netherlands. After that, it's Canada. But they don't bump into each other. So somebody's full of shit, or there's so many prospects out there that you don't have to worry about it. And I know after almost 31 years, there's so much out there you don't have to worry about it. It's one of those questions you ask, if not me here, yourself, that doesn't need to be asked because it doesn't happen. And one would think after 31 years, almost 31 years, in a few days, that they would have bumped into each other. It's just not. It doesn't happen. We're going to talk about goals later, but this says it fairly succinctly, why you haven't achieved your goals to date, why you have made smaller goals. You heard the Viking bitch say that women, she read, and it's true, women tend to make smaller, achievable goals, and guys tend to make bodacious, grandiose goals, which they may or may not achieve. Because when you're setting your goals, you're thinking directly or indirectly about the pessimists, what they're going to say, the reaction of people, your friends, haters, relatives, fear just in general, society, guilt, doubt. And if you're working at some institution, when your boss finds out you're doing this, what's he going to do? All those are true. But if you want it bad enough, you overcome it. It's like I had a couple of guys, this is early in the 90s, really before the woke movement, but political correctness started, that were my contemporaries in the military. And a couple of guys didn't become a general because they flapped their mouth and they said something that was contrary to what was the announced policy for the military going forward. And it stifled their career. Well, and since then, I know guys and the children of guys that I know that their careers have been stifled because the company takes this position and inclusion and all those words that I described over the last 4 days, and it's contrary to the public policy. And so they don't get hired. They don't get advanced. It's not that they don't get hired because they got hired. So you've been fighting this, for decades now. Now, this is a cute thing about government contracts. There's lemonade and solar panels. No, I don't know how to make them, but the energy department just gave me $130 million anyway. That's exactly correct. And yet, maybe one or two of you will do governments. And there's a whole set of reasons I can give, but I'm not going to go through them all. But you won't. Because you've conjured up some reason, or your initial outgoing into the government business, you fuck up, you step on your dick or something, and that keeps you from succeeding. But it's true. That's Jeff in 1999 when he had no employees, before he made his first acquisition of 3 sets of knee pads. And we all know where he is now. And he doesn't have the largest. I think he's got the second or third largest yacht in the world. And when they built it, I believe in the Netherlands, the drawbridge, nobody figured out that they couldn't get out of the bay because the drawbridge was too low. So he petitioned, and did all kinds of things to get the government to change. No fucking way. So depending on what rumor you want to believe, but the bottom line is they took part of the drawbridge and he built it back for them. But the government wasn't interested that he had spent $700 or $800 or $900 million or euros to build this boat, and some fucking moron didn't realize where they were building it. Which there's 4 or 5 places that you build yachts that are world class, the best yachts on the planet. A couple of them are in the Netherlands. And so you would have thought that somebody would have figured that out. It's just as I told one of you last night that I kept told you all actually. I kept no records the first 7 years because I didn't think I'd be doing this 8 years. And I wish I had kept the data for the first 7 years, but I didn't. But I certainly have the data from the 8th year on because I thought somebody was going to come and replicate me like they do on the internet, somebody from China, somebody from Belarus. And here I am 30 years later. About 10 or 12 years ago, Sally said, I don't think you should be concerned about that anymore, Dan. I don't think anybody is going to copy you. There's no competition out there. I was talking to this young man who knows Jason Nagy, and he in his one-on-one time, and I asked him about competition. He says, there's none. Zero. Other than if you happen to bump into one of you, and I already told you that it doesn't happen. So a lot of the things that you would normally, if you were doing a SWOT analysis on this, you don't have to worry about. Would you please not do that? And they told him he was brain dead when he came up with the Amazon idea. Now, I didn't know him, although I've done business with Amazon, but he has good education. He's allegedly Cuban. I don't know if that's true or not. But he just kept doing it. When I started this, I've already told you, Trump and a few other guys said that I was brain dead. How are you going to tell people or convince people that people will use their own money for you to buy their business? I mean, long time, even before I started coaching, when I was doing it myself. But I wasn't looking for any validation when I was doing it for myself. I just did it and continue to do it. But when I started coaching, I thought, having created a short $500 million, in the 80s, with nothing, that would be enough basis for me to sell it to people like you, but it wasn't. I had to get a bunch of people successful, and I did. But it was, as I've told you, lamented, not cried, but lamented several times that I underestimated grossly the kids, the future audiences, and the future flock didn't have any grit. But I persevered on, much like Mr. Jeff did.